I'm out here in the middle of the night because Walksnail has a new camera that they say has amazing low light sensitivity. And it comes with a new video transmitter that has more onboard storage and Gyroflow support, so you can stabilize your Walksnail footage. But mostly what I want to find out is this video that Walksnail showed, which seems to suggest the camera has unbelievable low light sensitivity, practically night vision. Is that video real? I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today. So I want to just do some flights around this parking lot, and we do have street lights in the parking lot, of course. So you could probably fly this with a normal camera, but I just want to see how it behaves in this environment. It certainly has great exposure. This looks a lot brighter than I would expect a normal FPV camera to look. This is completely flyable. I feel completely in control, and I can see everything that I would want to see. Let's push it a little bit though. So let's go into this darker area. Like over here behind the building, there isn't a street light. There is a street light here, but you can see it's not on. And now we're going into what is essentially a completely dark area. Obviously there's a lot of spillover light from adjacent lights, but the actual place where we are just looks totally dark. And it's doing a pretty good job. The image gets pretty grainy. There's a lot of digital noise here, but overall, we're maintaining a pretty usable image. If I fly over here into the field, there is really no light over here in the field. Just literally nothing, except sort of vague spill light from the nearby parking lot. And we again can 100% see the digital noise as the ISO, the sensitivity of the sensor, gets cranked up. We can see a lot of stars in the sky. Wow. Like just a ton of detail here. This is doing really better than expected. I really want to give you guys a sense of what this looks like to the human eye, but the problem is that cameras can always just like adjust their sensitivity up and down and just make stuff look way brighter than it is. So like I'm gonna do my best though. I'm gonna put the sensitivity like right here, and here we are in front of this area that I said was like pitch black. Like I'm literally walking into it now. You can just see this little light here up on the side wall, but like there's no light here. There's no light here. It's so dark, and it looked so bright when I was in the new camera. Over here is the field that I said was just pitch black, and you can see if I head on over here that like as soon as we get past just this little spill of light here, we just get out into the field there, and it's so dark, right? Let's take a look at the original camera, the original Walksnail camera, and see how it compares. Okay, now this is the original Walksnail camera, and immediately it's way more sensitive than even my DSLR. FPV cameras always seem to have more sensitivity. Let's go over to the dark place though, and let's see how dark it looks. Oh, it's still pretty freaking dark, baby. It's still pretty dark. It's still pretty dark. That is really dark. Can we get it to open up at all? Like, what if we just walk into it, like literally into it, so it turns up its gain? So now we're just standing in the completely dark part. It's opened up its sensitivity as much as it can. You see, we don't see really any stars in the sky. We got a ton of image noise and really no details. Let's turn on the other camera and see the difference. Oh, wow. I literally haven't moved at all. I have not moved at all from where I was standing in that last shot. You can immediately see the difference. You can immediately see the difference. It's struggling. I mean, as soon as I get over here, it looks way better. You can see that there's much less noise. If I point it over here, it has to crank the sensitivity of the sensor a lot, and it gets really noisy. But look, we can literally see that star in the sky? We could not see those stars with the other sensor. This is a much more sensitive sensor, no question. So Caddx have released a new camera with great low light performance, but that's far from all that's coming in this new release. They're kind of revamping and upgrading their whole product line. The new video transmitter has solder pads added in case you rip off your plug or prefer not to use it. Very convenient labeling for the plug and the solder pads, so you don't have to be looking at wiring diagrams while you're soldering it up. They've moved the bind button. It's actually now a little bit more low profile, so it'll be a little harder to knock off, although also a little harder to press. You'd need a tool to press it. You won't be able to press it just with your finger. The plugs are completely different shape, so you will not be able to use any plug or that you use, or the USB adapter that you used with your older ones, although it does come with plugs that fit it. And interestingly, they have reduced it down from 2 antennas to 1. It's very nice that the antenna has this bar covering it, just like on the original VTX. However, the original VTX had 2 really tiny, annoying Phillips head screws holding that bar down. And now they have put that bar underneath these screws, which hold the entire case together. So you'll be using a 1.5 millimeter driver to loosen that up, but it's not going to pop off during flight, and that's nice. They also have a retention bar for the MIPI cable that goes to the camera. The Walksnail video transmitters have always been able to record the camera feed directly in the VTX. And that means that you get a high quality recording of the image coming off the camera without any of the degradation of image quality that you see in the goggles as the signal gets weak. The original video transmitter had 8 gigabytes of storage, which stored about 20 minutes of video if you're at the high 50 megabit per second bitrate, or about 40 minutes of video if you're at the lower 25 megabits per second bitrate. The V2 video transmitter has been upgraded and can be ordered with 32 gig of storage, which quadruples those recording time numbers that I just gave you. However, be careful, there is a version of it with 8 gig on board. So you want to be sure, look at the product details for what you're buying and make sure you're not accidentally buying the 8 gig version if what you really want is the 32 gig version. There are 2 new cameras in this product release. This is the standard V2 camera, and it is not the low light camera that you saw me flying at the beginning of the video. That one's in a quadcopter, so it's not as easy to hold it on camera. But both of these new cameras are an upgrade from the older V1 camera that I've got here on the right. So just to recap, there are 3 new SKUs in the Walksnail product line. All of them come with the new V2 video transmitter, which can be purchased either with 8 gig or 32 gig of onboard storage. And then you can get the 8 gig version with the new V2 camera, the 32 gig version with the new V2 camera, or the Pro version, and that's the low light version, which is only available with 32 gig of storage. The new cameras have a larger 2K sensor that is capable of both 4:3 and 16:9 aspect ratio. So here's the V2 camera in 16:9 mode, and I want you to look at the left and right side of the screen, as well as the top and bottom, and see what you can see there. And now we're going to change it from 16:9 to 4:3, and you'll see that on the left and right sides of the screen, you have just as much field of view, but you have more field of view at the top and bottom. This is a native 4:3 sensor, so we get maximum field of view by running it in 4:3 mode. And there's one more aspect ratio, 4:3 full, which is just the full 4:3 image, but stretched to fill a 16:9 screen. Now let's do the same thing for the Pro camera. Here it is in 16:9, and we're going to go ahead and change it from 16:9 to 4:3. And here the exact opposite happens. Instead of getting more vertical field of view, the sides of the image are cut off, which suggests that this is a native 16:9 sensor. And in my opinion, there's not a lot of point in running this camera in 4:3. You're simply losing field of view off the side. I guess the only reason you would really want to do this in 4:3 mode would be if you had a pair of goggles that had a 4:3 screen and you were tired of running in letterbox and you were willing to give up that reduced horizontal field of view in order to fill your full screens. But there's one more feature here that you shouldn't overlook, and that's the onboard gyro. But in order to show you what the gyro data is used for, I gotta get some flight footage, and not just like flying around a parking lot in the middle of the night footage, actual flying around my yard. And we're going to start out, as I always do, at 700 milliwatts, high frame rate, 720p, and dare I do high bit rate? Okay, let's do high bit rate. I often start out at standard bit rate, but let's do high bit rate and let's see if it does a good job. I usually do standard bit rate because standard bit rate, high bit rate doesn't have as consistent latency, but let's see if this new system, I don't know, we'll try to make it look as good as possible. Well, if you want to make it look as good as possible, why not go to 1080p? Shut up, maybe I will later in the video. I don't go to 1200 milliwatts because in my experience at 1200 milliwatts the connection is less stable. And maybe there'll be time for a deep dive to see if that has changed with this new video transmitter. But for now, I just want to look at the image quality and the way the camera handles the exposure and so forth. Because a lot of times a low light camera will not do as good a job in the day. But I gotta say, it's doing a fine job. Like I'm not seeing any real issues with the exposure. As we get the sky, the bright sky in view versus the ground, I'm not seeing it really struggle with the exposure. If we go from the bright sunny outside into, oh, a little stutter there, a bright sunny outside into this darker trees area here, it's doing fine. There's a reasonable amount of shadow detail. The shadows are not just completely dark. Like if we go in here, a little bit of lens flare there. That's really a worst case orientation of the sun, but a little lens flare there. We'll see if the other cameras do that. I mean, this, I feel like there's nothing about this that would make me like hate it. If I bought this for its low light sensitivity, I don't think there's a lot that would like make me hate it if I used it as a day-to-day camera for its, during the day. All right, this is the V2 camera. That one was the Pro camera, the low light night vision one. This is just the V2 daylight camera. Let's check it out. It looks to me like the colors on this one are a little more washed out than the Pro cam. It just looks a little less vibrant. I don't know. I had to go down and swap the camera, so the sun has moved a little. Just looks a little more muted. Let's see. Still got some lens flare. The sun has moved a little bit, so it's hard to say. Lens flare? I think the lens flare is a little better. Overall, though, I mean, it's a fine camera. It's a fine camera. We'd have to really dig into the DVR between the two cameras to, like, know if there was a big difference between them. Now that we've got some flight footage, we can reveal that the gyro data is for use with Gyroflow. That's the program that you're looking at right now. And Gyroflow, what it does is it stabilizes the footage and makes it look nice. Now, for hobbyists who are just flying around, this may not be something that would be a really big deal for them. But especially for professionals who want to get the best results with cinematic flying, this is a big deal. So we're just going to load in the file. We're going to load in the lens profile. Caddx has created lens profiles for these cameras. And we're going to load in the gyro data, which is the GCSV file that is saved on the video transmitter. This is not saved on the DVR. It's saved on the video transmitter. This is number 12, so we're going to load that in, and it's going to load in gyro data that can then be used to stabilize the footage. And every time somebody shows me Gyroflow, they're like, well, it's just so simple. You just load the footage, you hit auto sync, and bam, then the footage is stabilized. And it never seems to be that simple for me. Like, if we look at some of this footage, it is clearly being manipulated, but Like, there's all this jerkiness that it's not actually there in the original footage. Let's turn the smoothness all the way down and look at that again. This is what the raw footage looks like. It's pretty stable, not the stablest, but all that jerkiness that we saw wasn't there. I have to assume this is user error, and I just don't know how to get the best results out of Gyroflow, because I know professionals use Gyroflow to get amazing results. But I can't be sure that this isn't something with the system. I just am not qualified to judge that, because I never get great results with Gyroflow, because apparently I just don't know how to use it. And then I just use Real Steady Go, and it just magically works. But this won't work with Real Steady Go, because that only works with GoPros. So anyway, at this point, you may be thinking, this is all great for people who are buying brand new equipment, but what about the people who already bought into Walksnail? Are they just out in the cold? And I'm going to answer that question for you right after I tell you about my Patreon. Patreon is a website where you can subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month, or more if you feel like I've earned it. The amount you subscribe at is totally up to you. It's just make it proportional to however much value you feel like you get out of my content. Patrons get access to my Discord server, which is full of friendly, helpful people who would love to talk to you about FPV and a whole lot of other things. We've even got a channel where you can post pictures of your dog and cat. Separate channels. We don't put dogs and cats together on my server. But mostly what I hope you get out of joining my Patreon is the great feeling of supporting the work that I do, which I hope that you have been entertained by, have saved money, have solved problems for months and months, or maybe even years. And eventually you go, hey, today's the day. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to give something back. If today is that day, there's a link in the video description, patreon.com. And if today isn't that day, that's cool. I'm going to keep making the content, and, hopefully you'll keep watching it, and maybe that day will come. There's good news for people who have the original Walksnail hardware. The new cameras are completely compatible with the old video transmitters, including the Gyroflow support. If you get a camera that has a gyro in it and update the firmware on your old VTX will be able to log the gyro data just like I showed. Pretty much the only feature of this new hardware that the old video transmitter can't take advantage of is the upgraded internal storage from 8 to 32 gigs. Sorry, that's a hardware update. But other than that, if you have these video transmitters, they are definitely still 100% usable, and you can just welcome to switch to the camera, buy the camera separately, disconnect it, connect it to your video transmitter, and go have a good time. So, who are each of these cameras right for? Well, the Pro camera is only available with the 32 gig video transmitter, and the Pro camera is only available with the gyro sensor. So for $159, you get the whole kit and caboodle. The only downside of the Pro camera, in my opinion, is that it doesn't have a native 4.3 sensor. So if, like me, you really prefer to fly in 4.3, if at all possible, then the Pro camera might not be your favorite choice. But given that the Dominator goggles are R69 widescreen, a lot of times I might choose to fly 69 widescreen if the goggles were widescreen, just because I want the screen to be full. I don't know, that's a toss-up, and you probably already know which of those you prefer. The V2 camera can be purchased either with or without gyro, and if you buy the camera by itself to use with your V1 video transmitter, then you can just decide whether you feel like Gyroflow support is desirable to you or not. And it can be purchased with a video transmitter that has either 32 gig or 8 gig of storage. The 32 gig video transmitter is sold with the camera with the gyro if you buy them in a kit and not separately. The non-gyro camera is sold with an 8 gig storage video transmitter. To me, the V2 camera is really good for people who want to fly 4.3 and really want that big vertical field of view that a native 4.3 camera gives you. I don't know for a fact that the camera has a native 4.3 sensor, but generally when the field of view gets bigger vertically in 4.3, that's what that means. And for people who love that, like me, this is a big deal because I've been wanting that from this system forever and haven't been able to get it. Now I finally can. But the catch is that I can't get the 4.3 field of view of the V2 camera and the low light sensitivity of the Pro camera at the same time. And I'm honestly not sure which of those I would like the best. I don't fly at dusk a lot. I don't fly in really dark bandos a lot. But how much of that is because my cameras don't let me? And if I could go in those really dark areas and not even notice that it got dark, it might open up a whole lot of places to fly. And maybe that 4.3 isn't such a big deal after all. That's a tough one. I'm not sure which of these cameras I would pick as my personal favorite, but whichever one you decide to pick, please make sure that you use the affiliate links down in the video description. Affiliate links mean that anytime you click that link and then make any purchase at the affiliated vendor, I get a small commission. It's a very easy way for you to support the channel. It really adds up, and it doesn't cost you anything. Just take the time to go click the link. This low-light Walksnail camera is at least tied for the best low-light camera available for a digital system, the other one being the Caddx Polar. Maybe I'll put them side by side in a future video and see how they stack up. Another thing Walksnail has going for it is its 1S video transmitter. This is a small, lightweight video transmitter that can run off a 1S battery for use on very small quadcopters like Tiny Whoops. I actually put that into a 3-inch toothpick build and made a really, really excellent digital little micro ripper. And I want to put the card on screen to that video. It's a build video, but it's also kind of a review of the 1S video transmitter at the same time. I think you're going to find it really interesting. Though there's a link down in the video description below too, if for some reason you don't see the card.